3 hours after we buried my brother, my husband handed me divorce papers in our kitchen while still wearing the same black suit from the funeral. Rainwater dripped from his coat onto the hardwood floor while he loosened his tie and said the words that destroyed the last illusion I had left about my marriage. "I'm leaving you for your brother's wife." I remember staring at him in silence, waiting for guilt, shame, anything human to appear on his face. Nothing did. Then he calmly slid the papers across the counter and said, "Just sign them, Claire. It'll be easier for everyone." My brother Ethan had been dead for less than 4 hours. He died in a highway collision outside Milwaukee. 43 years old. Healthy. Disciplined. The kind of man who remembered every employee's birthday and paid people's medical bills without telling anyone. He built Hawthorne Logistics from 3 trucks into one of the largest freight companies in the Midwest. And somehow the man he trusted most besides me was already trying to take his place. My husband, Marcus. At the funeral, Marcus had played the grieving brother-in-law perfectly. Hand on my back. Quiet face. Careful sympathy. But looking back now, I realize his attention kept drifting toward my brother's widow, Elise. Elegant. Controlled. Expensive black dress. Tears that looked almost practiced. At the time I hated myself for suspecting anything. Now I know my instincts were right. When Marcus told me he planned to marry Elise, I asked the only question that mattered. How long? He took a sip of bourbon before answering. A while. Not remorseful. Not ashamed. Just practical. Then he said something I will never forget. "You were never built for the life I want." That sentence should have shattered me. Instead, something inside me became very calm. Because suddenly I remembered the voicemail Ethan left me 2 nights before he died. I still hadn't listened to it. Marcus pushed the divorce papers closer. "Let's not drag this out." I looked down at the documents. Asset waivers. Clean separation. Everything already prepared. Which meant he planned this before my brother died. That realization changed everything. Marcus expected screaming, crying, maybe begging. Instead, I picked up the pen and signed my name. For the first time that night, he looked surprised. "That's it?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "You seem eager to leave." 40 minutes later, he walked out with a suitcase. The moment his car disappeared, I played Ethan's voicemail. There was a long pause before my brother spoke. "Claire, if you're hearing this, something probably happened before I could explain things myself." My chest tightened immediately. Then he said quietly, "Don't trust anyone until David Mercer reads the will." For the next few weeks I barely slept. Not because I missed Marcus. Because once the shock faded, every ignored warning sign came rushing back at once. The late nights at work. The expensive suits. The way Elise laughed too hard at his jokes during company dinners. The sudden arrogance. It all rearranged itself into something ugly and obvious. Meanwhile, Marcus and Elise stopped hiding almost immediately. Photos appeared online less than a week after the funeral. Steak dinners downtown. Weekend trips to Lake Geneva. Smiling beside fireplaces like 2 people starting a glamorous new life together. In one photo, Marcus wore Ethan's cashmere coat. That nearly broke me. Not because Marcus looked happy. Because my brother trusted him completely. A week later, I finally returned to Hawthorne Logistics headquarters in downtown Chicago. The moment I stepped onto the executive floor, conversations stopped. Everyone already knew. Marcus was practically acting like CEO already. Ethan's assistant, Jenna, hugged me the second she saw me. "You need to see what's happening," she whispered. Apparently Marcus had started using Ethan's office daily, sitting behind his desk, leading meetings, talking about future restructuring. Elise had been showing up too. When I walked into Ethan's office and saw Marcus sitting in my brother's chair wearing my brother's coat, something cold settled permanently inside me. "What are you doing?" I asked quietly. "Working," he replied casually. "Someone has to stabilize things. You're a regional sales director." He leaned back comfortably. "Titles change." Then he said something that told me exactly what he believed. Elise inherited everything anyway. There it was. The entire plan. Marcus thought my brother's fortune belonged to Elise now. And through Elise eventually to him. I asked one question carefully. "Did Ethan know about you too before he died?" Marcus's expression flickered for half a second. Fear. Then the office door opened. David Mercer stepped inside. Ethan's attorney. Tall, gray-haired. Calm in the way only wealthy lawyers seem capable of being. He looked at Marcus and said politely, "I need a private conversation with Claire." Marcus left reluctantly. The moment the door closed, David placed a sealed envelope on the desk. "Your brother made changes shortly before his death," he said carefully, "and he instructed me not to explain anything until 30 days passed." "Why 30 days?" David looked directly at me. "Because your brother believed people reveal their true character when they think they've already won. That month changed everything." Marcus became reckless. He and Elise hosted lavish dinners at Ethan's house. Marcus removed family photos from the office. Started talking like the company already belonged to him. But greed makes people careless. And Ethan had been preparing quietly long before any of us realized it. The morning of the will reading, reporters waited outside the law office downtown. Apparently rumors about Ethan's estate had spread through Chicago business circles. When I entered the conference room, Marcus looked almost cheerful. Elise sat beside him in a fitted black dress wearing diamond earrings Ethan probably bought her. They looked like people arriving for a celebration instead of a legal meeting. David entered exactly at 9 o'clock carrying several folders. Then he began reading. "Under the revised terms of Ethan Hawthorne's estate," he said calmly, "the sole controlling beneficiary of Hawthorne Logistics and all associated executive holdings is Claire Hawthorne." Silence. Marcus blinked once. Elise frowned in confusion. Then Marcus actually laughed. "Okay," he said. "Very funny." David didn't even look at him. "Estate law is rarely humorous, Mr. Bennett." Elise's face lost color instantly. Marcus grabbed the paperwork and scanned it frantically. "No," he muttered. "That's impossible." David folded his hands calmly. "Your brother established a separate trust for Elise's personal support. However, full operational control of all primary assets transfers directly to Claire." I watched panic enter both their faces at the exact same moment, because suddenly the future they built together disappeared. Marcus stood abruptly. "Ethan would never do this." David opened another folder. Actually, he did. Then he pressed a button on the remote beside him. A television screen flickered on, and suddenly my brother appeared. Alive. Sitting behind his office desk in a navy sweater. For one terrible second I forgot how to breathe. "If you're watching this," Ethan said calmly, then David was right. "Things became ugly after I died." Marcus slowly sat down. Then Ethan looked directly into the camera. "Marcus, I know you've been stealing from the company." Marcus went completely pale. "And I know about you and Elise." Elise covered her mouth. I closed my eyes briefly. Ethan knew everything. The affair. The theft. All of it. "I stayed quiet because I needed proof," Ethan continued. "And because I wanted my sister protected before the truth surfaced." Marcus exploded immediately. "This is manipulated." "Sit down," David snapped. Marcus ignored him, pointing at me wildly. "She turned him against me." David calmly opened another document. "There's one more issue." Marcus stopped talking. "During your divorce filing," David continued, "you voluntarily signed a complete marital asset waiver relinquishing all future claims connected to Claire Hawthorne's holdings." I watched realization hit him in real time. He had rushed through the divorce believing I was worthless, believing Elise held the fortune, believing he had upgraded his life. But Ethan left everything to me. The company, the investments, the executive authority, even the accounts Marcus had been using. Marcus looked physically sick. Then something almost funny happened. Elise stood up slowly, picked up her handbag, and looked at Marcus with complete disgust. "You told me the company was basically yours already." "Elise, wait." "No." And just like that, she walked away from him. 9 days later, she disappeared from his life completely. That was the great love story that destroyed my marriage. 9 days. Security escorted Marcus out of the building after the meeting. Outside the office tower, reporters shouted questions while cold winds swept through downtown Chicago. I was heading toward the elevator when Marcus grabbed my arm. "You knew," he said desperately. "No," I answered honestly. I suspected. His voice cracked. We can fix this. I almost laughed. You moved into my brother's house 4 days after his funeral. I made mistakes. You slept with his wife while he was alive. He looked away. Then quietly I said the thing that finally broke him. You told me I wasn't built for the life you wanted. Marcus stared at me silently. Now you finally understand who wasn't built for it. 3 days later, Hawthorne Logistics terminated him officially after internal investigators uncovered financial fraud tied to several client accounts. Not millions. Just enough stolen money to make him feel important. That's the thing about people like Marcus. They confuse access with achievement. He thought standing beside powerful people made him powerful too. Doesn't. Meanwhile, I spent the next several months trying not to drown under the responsibility Ethan left behind. First I was terrified. But grief changes people. Especially women people underestimate. I started arriving before sunrise. Reviewing contracts. Walking warehouse floors. Listening to drivers and dispatch managers the way Ethan always did. Slowly employees began trusting me. Not because I was extraordinary, because I cared. One afternoon an older dispatcher stopped me beside the loading docks and said something I still think about. You know the difference between you and Marcus? What? Marcus wanted the company to make him important. You want the company to take care of people. That was Ethan's real legacy. Not money. Responsibility. A few months later, Marcus showed up at my house during a thunderstorm. I saw him standing under the porch light soaked to the bone, looking older already. The expensive suits were gone. So was the confidence. I lost everything. He whispered the second I opened the door. I stared at him quietly. Not because I enjoyed his suffering. Because I remembered the version of him I once loved. And there's something deeply unsettling about watching someone become unrecognizable. I was stupid, he said. Yes, I answered softly. Then his voice cracked. I thought success would finally make me enough. That sentence lingered between us. Because underneath all the greed and arrogance, Marcus had always been deeply insecure. He believed money could erase shame, erase failure, erase ordinariness. It never can. Then he started crying. Real tears this time. Please, he whispered. Please give me another chance. And there, beneath cold Illinois rain, Marcus Bennett dropped to his knees on my front porch begging for the life he destroyed with his own hands. But the moment that stayed with me forever wasn't his apology. It was what happened next. His eyes drifted past me into the living room and landed on a framed photograph above the fireplace. Ethan smiling beside both of us at Christmas years earlier. Marcus stared at that picture and finally understood the full weight of what he betrayed. After a long silence, I handed him an umbrella. Go home, Marcus. His face collapsed completely because I think he finally realized he didn't really have one anymore. The company was gone. Elise was gone. His reputation was destroyed. Most of his friends vanished the second his status disappeared. He took the umbrella slowly. I never meant for this to happen, he whispered. That sentence revealed everything. People like Marcus never believe they're villains. They think disaster simply appears around them without choices leading their one selfish decision at a time. So instead of arguing, I told him the truth. You kept choosing yourself over everyone who loved you. Then he walked away into the rain. I never saw him again. Months later I heard he moved to Indiana under a different name and took a low-level trucking sales job after quietly settling the fraud investigation. Elise relocated to Arizona searching for another wealthy life to step into. And me? I stayed. The company survived. Then it grew. Later that year we launched the Ethan Hawthorne Foundation, providing scholarships for employees' children pursuing college or trade programs. The first recipient was a mechanic's daughter who wanted to become an engineer. When I called to tell her she'd received full tuition support, she cried so hard she could barely speak. After we hung up, I sat alone in my office staring at the Chicago skyline and realized something unexpected. For the first time since Ethan died, grief no longer felt empty. It felt meaningful. 1 year later, I visited Ethan's grave during the first snowfall of winter. I brought white lilies because he used to buy them for our mother every Easter. Standing there in the cold, I finally whispered the truth out loud. You were right. I trusted people too easily. But Ethan also taught me something else. I didn't need someone else to save my life. That's the thing people misunderstand about revenge. Real revenge isn't screaming. It isn't humiliation. It's rebuilding yourself so completely that the people who betrayed you can no longer recognize the person standing in front of them. It's surviving honestly while they collapse beneath the weight of their own choices. As I walked back toward my car, sunlight slowly broke through the winter clouds and spilled across the snow around the cemetery. And for the first time in a very long time, the future didn't scare me anymore. It felt earned.